Hey guys, welcome back to another week of Behind and Beyond. This week, I'm joined by Pastor Scott Stevens, and we break down his message from this weekend about the story of Zacchaeus. A few things you can expect to hear. We talk about what it looks like to not settle and make sure that we're not in that season of wandering or staying somewhere that we need to move through and not stay put. We also talk through what it looks like to hear that spiritual nudge from the Holy Spirit, how we can confidently know what the Lord's saying and take that next step of boldness. We wrap up our conversation talking about the importance of godly community and how valuable it is to have people speak truth into our lives. It's an awesome conversation, and I can't wait for you to hear it, so let's get into it. All right, Scott, welcome back. It's been a minute.
Good.
Thanks
Good to be here.
Yeah, how do you feel? It's a better chair. I know that was important to you.
It's a better chair. It's very nice. I like it.
Yeah, you fit right
setup.
in.
I like it.
Yeah.
I've been watching. I like it.
Good.
Couldn't wait. Yeah.
We're glad to have you here. I would love to start with, I know there's always so much that doesn't make it into the sermon. Is there anything that you wanted to dive into this weekend that you didn't get to that you had? The floor is yours now if you want to just share some more stuff.
Yeah. I think one thing for me, just maybe generally when I do sermons, I really try to keep it under 30 minutes of content. Like, so I'll typically, I know just by how much I've written about how long that's going to be, and then I'll practice it out loud. And I've always tried to keep it under because throughout my years of preaching, I like to leave space just in case, like God's given me something for like that particular room or that particular service. So this sermon, to get it down under 30, I cut out a couple pretty big things, or a couple key things. One was just funny. Like one was just in that. You remember in that thing I found that study of the average height of
that was great.
5'1" to 5'5", and so I applied that like to Zacchaeus, if you recall, and had some fun. But you know, another thing that it made me think of, like how tall was Jesus?
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. Like for me, I've always pictured him as like 6'2",
yeah,
broad-shouldered, and a carpenter's boy. But he was probably a little guy.
Yeah.
Because the Bible, prophecies talks about him just being a normal.
Yeah.
So I was going to put something in there about that, but I thought that might bum everybody out. Like, he was a little guy?
Yeah.
I thought he was a big guy. So that didn't make it, but I don't think that was a big deal.
Yeah.
A couple other things that didn't make it. Remember that part where I talked about don't mail it in, and I was speaking to maybe, my generation. I'm 62, maybe like that 50-something and up generation. That was personal. I could have probably dug a lot deeper there with me. I'm trying to figure out my next season, my season I'm in. I've got a lot of it figured out. I plan on obviously the work part of it, Northway part of it, being around for a while. I don't see myself like retiring and sitting around. But I also had a piece written like, the younger generation too. I think we can. I think you can mail it in your 40s, and I had some examples of what that might look like. And then I had a part. I have an 18-year-old grandson, so I'm always challenging him. He's like a senior in high school, and he knows what he wants to do when he gets out. He wants to go into the trades. He wants to be steam fitter, and I keep telling him, but don't mail in these high school years.
Yeah.
Like there's still things you can learn, people you can impact, experiences that you're supposed to have. So I had like a sort of section, like I was going to like back it down from 40s to 20s to even into the teen years. And then the probably the other big piece that didn't make it, I really believe in divine conversations. Like I think that if you pray, like, God, today, don't let me miss a conversation that I'm supposed to have, or someone that I'm supposed to speak into. It's been a prayer of mine pretty consistently throughout the years. And then it'll be like a nudge from God, like where I'm literally like walking by somebody that I like. Let's just say I know. I don't usually walk up to somebody like I don't know. It's like, hey, God told me to talk to you today. But if God says so, then do it. But like I might, rather than blow by them, I might say, okay, and then all of a sudden, like the conversation is something really important, either for them or something that I needed to do. So, I really have felt like over the years, if I would not have grabbed a hold of a few divine conversations, there'd have been like the trajectory of my life may have changed.
Wow.
So I have one like in particular that I had written. There was a gentleman that really influenced me to move from the corporate world into ministry. So I was sort of doing both. I was volunteering at the student ministry, young life stuff, but I was still in the sales world, and I knew I was going to do something I felt like in teaching or in ministry. I was just trying to figure it out. And yeah, I met a man named Chuck Rosemeyer. I think I've mentioned him over the years, just randomly. And he said something that intrigued me. I went up to him after a little gathering we were at and said, "Boy, can I have a coffee with you someday? There's just something about you said that makes me," he was so gracious, and then he became a major influence in my life. And it was just because he said something and I challenged myself to go have the divine conversation.
Huh. And you allowed your schedule to be interrupted too.
Yeah.
To tie back into what you talked about as well. You weren't, holding too tightly onto your expectations for your day, or just kind of like, feeling that prompting and being like, but I got things to do. Like, it's all about, I think that ties in really well, like to what you said as well. So
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think those are the big sort of cuts to keep it under 30 or so that I could, have the freedom to go. Like, I don't know if you notice, like usually what happens if I pick up the music, the stand that I have my notes on, and I put it behind me. All right, so now I'm just going to talk, and I'm just going to
see what happens.
See what happens.
That's so impressive to me still to this day, like how you guys can teach. And just so often I feel like I'll like sit with you guys, like other pastors, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to close the sermon, like how the Spirit leads and and I'm like, that is just amazing to see and witness. I think that would really scare me, intimidate me, but it's amazing. It's amazing to watch. So speaking of things that got shifted around, I know just from getting to be kind of behind the scenes and see the sermon run through, that hill country piece really like moved throughout your whole prep. Like it was at the end, and then you ended up bringing it back to the front and then tying it in as like a thread throughout the whole thing, which was really, I think, really effective. How did you, I know you mentioned a little bit, but I'd love to hear more about how did you feel from the Lord that this piece was supposed to be included with this Zacchaeus story, that at first glance, they might seem unrelated. What did that process look like for you when you heard that from the Lord?
That's good. So I had been actually listening to something. I was trying to go back and figure out where I grabbed that text from, but I'm pretty sure it was something I was listening to. So I'm an up early guy, often treadmill guy. So I'll constantly just be listening to stuff, particularly if I have a sermon coming up. I might just be trying to like immerse myself in trying to see if something jumps out at me but this wasn't that. This was just something. I'm fascinated with that season right now of the nation of Israel. I've been like in my personal time just looking at their exit out of Egypt, and then that time. There's not a whole lot written about that.
Yeah.
Like that's 40 years, like right, and there's not much written about it.
Yeah.
So I've been just trying to sense that or figure that out, what was going on. So that text, that Deuteronomy text, just jumped off the page like that, and I like it said the word came from the Lord, and it said, you've been doing this long enough.
Yeah.
I felt like it was like that's the way I heard it. Like it wasn't like long enough. Like no, it was long enough.
Yeah.
Turn north. I don't know, that just stuck, and I said, I think that's like a word for Northway. And I also sensed that dinner time conversation with Zacchaeus, that there's nothing recorded of, but he comes out of the tree, a hated, thief basically, a sinner, whatever you want to title it. And at the end of dinner, he's a changed man.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are going to benefit from his change. He is going to bless a lot of people. I mean, just half of what he owned to the poor is going to change that whole community of those that are living in poverty in that area. It would be like the most wealthiest man, like just saying in Pittsburgh, saying, I'm going to give half them, like it just would change and then, people that know that they got robbed by the guy or that he squeezed something out of them that wasn't they're getting it back fourfold. So, yeah, I felt like there was something there that he turned north. So I had tucked it at the end of the sermon almost as how I was going to land it. And, we do the run through and some of the feedback that the folks that were doing the run through, Dave and Amanda, felt like there might be something more.
Yeah.
So and it's like in those run throughs, they're intimidating.
Yeah, I bet.
You were in that one. Yeah. Like it's always, so you like sit, you do your whole sermon, and then there's this silence. Like
It's horrible.
they're just looking, and I'm like, okay, that was awful. Like, I don't know what you're just waiting for the first person.
Yep.
And so that seemed to be a theme, but like, it wasn't like, okay, you have to take this and put it in the beginning. It was just like,
No.
What do you think? And so that was Thursday morning, and I had the rest of the day sort of blocked off. So I just sat back down with it and tried a couple things about moving it to the front, like actually reading that first, and then it was just sort of sitting with it and saying it out loud and thinking through it, and then it landed there. And by Thursday night, I like to be done. Like I want to know when I go home Thursday, okay, this thing's pretty much cooked. I'll come in Friday and work through it a little bit and wrap it up. But so I think that was the part about that.
Yeah, that was good. What are some hill countries, to kind of use that term, that you see people get stuck in?
Yeah.
Just different demographics, or just over your time as a pastor? What have you seen kind of themes?
Right. I think, so when I was using like wandering or settling.
Yeah.
So like wandering in the wilderness or settling in the hill country. So I think that we all can tend to have these wandering seasons where we're not sure about something and we're in the wilderness or like in the storm or we're not on the path, whatever analogy you want to use for it. But they aren't necessary. They can be healthy. You're just trying to sort something out.
Yeah.
To me, settling is different.
Yeah.
Like settling is now I've decided I'm staying here, like in the hill country. And the nation of Israel was doing both during those times. They were wandering in circles, but then they had settled for the hill country. I think they had resigned themselves to that this is where we're going to be, and we're stuck. And so I think that the hill country to me represents, or in that analogy, represented when you settle, when you just decide. So it could be almost anything, right? I think I threw some examples out, like that this marriage is what it is. I don't believe that. Like, I've seen marriages that were stuck, seemed to be irreconcilable, or seemed to be that both people had just designed like, you know what, the kids are gone, we're just going to live this thing out. And so I think that is settling. And there's so many different things now available to help marriages get out of those seasons of feeling like you've settled. I think people settle in destructive behaviors where they know this is not healthy for them, and yet they've just settled that this is just my dad did this and my grandfather, and this is who we are. I think people settle in careers, but I'm certainly not saying go quit your job. I think sometimes there's seasons in our careers where we might be doing exactly what we want to do, but I think we can settle and not put our heart into it anymore, regardless of what it is. I do want to say one thing here that I probably didn't say, and like afterwards, maybe I wished I did. Like if we're going to talk anything about like that nudging from the Lord or that prompting of the Spirit. Hey, listen, the Spirit would never tell you, divorce your wife, the marriage is, so like the Spirit's never going to tell you, God's never going to nudge you to do something that doesn't align with his values and ways. So, if you heard me somehow saying, I feel like I've settled for this and now I'm just going to quit, or I'm just going to, not it. Like, all right. So I hope that was self-explanatory. But because I had somebody like email me and say like, oh, my marriage has been, I've often been trying to figure out whether it's just we shouldn't have got married. I'm like, like,
No.
call
That's
me
not
right
God's
now.
heart,
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that's not what you heard from me.
No, yeah.
That isn't me.
Yes.
That's not God.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Maybe speak a little bit to what does that turning north look like? How do you hear it? What is like practically? How do you, if you're in that space and you're like, I know I'm settling, but I don't know what God wants me to do.
Yeah.
What does that look like to turn north? Just even if it's, I don't know. I'll let you answer. I won't answer for you. Yeah.
I think God's persistent.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy for us to sometimes ignore a nudge. But if that nudge comes back, or if it seems to be, constantly returning,
Yeah.
a thought, you're sitting around daydreaming and you're like, and here it is again. I think to me, that's something you should take notice of. I think if it's confirmed or affirmed by your most trusted people, that they're like maybe mentioning this to you, or I think if you are sensing this nudge and you go to somebody that you really trust, maybe your spouse or a core, in my case, a core group of guys or something that I really trust their advice, and I say, this is what I'm thinking, and they say, yeah, like what in the world are you thinking? So then that's so the example I used was that mission experience, and that's what it was for me. It was like a constant nudge, like I'd be in a meeting and there'd be talk about something happened in one of our global partners, and I would be like, I should really go there. And then I'd look, and we hadn't had anybody from our team sort of visit them or sent a team. So, but I was really in this like that just, I've always felt like that just sounds like no fun at all. Like eating weird food and getting on a plane for all
Long
those
travel.
hours. Yeah. And being that uncomfortable it just wasn't me. But, and then like, I think I rationalized like, I'm the lead pastor. I don't want to just step out of everything for a couple weeks and be out of touch, out of whatever. And then I was like pulling the old stuff at home, you still got a daughter at home, and one's married, so like lots of nudges, lots of people saying, yes, you should really check that out. You should think about it. You should pray about it. But I like one of the final ones, I just said something like, I should probably do that. But like, that's crazy, right? And she's like, no. And then she's also saying like, I probably would go with you to one. Like if we can figure this out.
No way.
So I was like, all right, here we go. And like, we went head first. We went like China was like one of the first ones we did together. And
That's
then her and
awesome.
I did India once together. And then I took my youngest daughter to India with me once. And then Honduras and Haiti and Kashmir and lots of other places along the way. So most of them by myself, not by myself, but with a team, not with family. And and I talked about how it just, it was definitely probably jumped in it a little later than I should have. Like probably a year or two before that, I should have jumped on it.
Then imagine if you hadn't. I mean, it's crazy all the places you ended up going after that first one.
Yeah.
After that first nudge.
And it was just going to be one. I said, okay, I'm just doing this one. And then it was a good like 5, 6, 7 year run of doing these year after year. And then so that was an example. But like, moving into ministry and lots of other things, I felt like there's been nudges. The nudge to come to Northway. Like I had no intention of leaving the church that I was at. I felt like, I was running this fairly large youth ministry. Felt like this is where, we were going to be. And man, I like that nudge was I can't sleep. Like I was waking up saying, and then talking to some people and saying, of course, you should check. Had a couple friends that introduced me to Jay Passavant. So it was following the nudge that landed me here.
Wow.
That's
amazing. Wow. Yeah. And I think that's so good for people to hear that it's that consistency and that, like you said, like God's persistence and the repetition partnered with that confirmation from people who are trusted voices in your life, and who will tell you if you're way off base or will keep you in check. It's just the importance of godly community can just like really make all the difference.
It really does. So I think I really want to say that here. Like so it's a nudge that is then affirmed by, you said, godly community, not
Yeah.
your knucklehead buddy.
Yeah.
Like I have lots of knucklehead buddies that they're not who I'm going to
Yeah.
to seek godly wisdom or affirm a nudge from God. Is this the Spirit? But I have a couple different circles of people, and I think that is so important. And I am not like a hundreds of friends guy. Like I have a couple core groups or particular people. One, there's a buddy of mine, real godly man, that we would just get together from time to time and chat. He'd pour into me, I'd pour into him. We're the same age, roughly. He's a couple years younger than me. But so it wasn't a mentor thing. It was more like a peer. And then what we did was we turned it into something. He called it Just Be Guys. And it's just a group of us about every 6-7 weeks. We just get together. I don't know if I can say this right. We have a beer or two, and then we eat some food, and then we bring a question to the group, and then it's, what's one thing God is doing in your life right now? What's one confused area right now? Something like that, and then everybody just goes around the room and you're not really supposed to give advice, it's not, it's just sort of like, here's what's happening. But there is a bit of sharing, and it's a group that's all sort of in my age group. So they're sort of experiencing similar things it's another spot where I work out some of my, and I've been speaking to this group about like sort of this season I'm in and this next season I'm heading into. And they're the ones that are pouring in to me. That's awesome.
That's so important. And people that are in your stage and in your season, but also are going to like call you, out of things, patterns and when they know you and they've seen you over time, they can be like, that's not you. Like, what are you doing? Or, or like that is you and you should lean into that.
That's it.
Yeah. That's
Perfect.
huge. Absolutely huge. Well, I can't believe it, but our time's run out. Flies when we're having so much fun over here. So thanks for being here, Scott.
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Hope to have you back. This was great. And thank you to everybody for listening, for watching, and we'll see you next week, guys.